Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. A possible thaw in the icy trade relationship between Canada and the United States.
Canada and the United States have reestablished free trade for the vast majority of our goods.
Tariff talk and a pledge from the Prime Minister.
There is a lot of talk to have about this with our party insiders. Greg McEachern is a former Liberal ministerial advisor. Melanie Richet is a former communications director for the NDP. Fred Delory is a former Conservative campaign manager. And joining the panel for this big day is regular host of the show, David Cochrane.
Canada just made a move that could flip the entire trade war on its head. After months of fiery rhetoric, tariffs, and broken trust, Prime Minister Mark Carney stunned both allies and critics by announcing that Canada will drop its retaliatory tariffs on American goods. On the surface, it looks like an olive branch. But dig a little deeper, and the picture isn't so simple. Some see it as a strategic masterstroke, others call it a dangerous surrender. And the fallout from this single decision could reshape North America's entire economic future. So why did Carney take this gamble? What was Trump's reaction? And most importantly, what does it mean for Canada's next chapter in this trade war? Let's break it down. In a move few saw coming, Carney told Canadians that beginning September 1st, Canada will remove counter tariffs on U.S. goods covered under CUSMA, the trade pact binding Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. Carney framed it as a simple matter of fairness. "We're matching what the U.S. has done," he repeated again and again. According to him, America has no tariffs on CUSMA-exempt goods, so Canada is leveling the playing field. But beneath that calm presentation, Canadians could sense the tension. These tariffs had been more than just numbers. They were symbols of resistance during months of bruising trade battles. And by lifting them, Carney opened himself to accusations of weakness. Still, he insisted this was the smart move. Matching Washington's policy would, in his words, kickstart negotiations and rebuild trust. But was this really Canada standing tall, or quietly bowing its head? If Carney expected a hostile response from Trump, he didn't get it. Instead, Trump praised the move, calling it nice and promising that America would be very good to Canada. For a moment, it felt like a thaw in an icy relationship. Two leaders who had spent months clashing now sounded almost friendly. Trump even teased that negotiations were getting closer and towards the end. But here's the catch. U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, the very metals that fuel Canada's auto and construction sectors, remain firmly in place. And those tariffs are still much higher than Canada's. Trump had every reason to celebrate. He gave up nothing, while Carney dropped a key bargaining chip. So was this a breakthrough or a trap? Carney admitted it himself. The toughest fights aren't over. Yes, Canada matched tariffs on autos, creating some symmetry. But on steel and aluminum, the gap is glaring. Canada's duties are lower, America's remain sky-high, and both sides know this will be the battleground of the next phase. Carney warned Canadians to brace for a long haul. Renegotiating CUSMA could take up to 18 months with every sector, from agriculture to autos, on the line. And while he projected calm, trade experts were blunt. Dropping tariffs without extracting concessions risks leaving Canada weaker when the real fight begins. Carney's critics pounced immediately. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre wasted no time calling the move a capitulation. According to him, Carney gave up leverage and got nothing back. "His elbows have mysteriously gone missing," Poilievre sneered, accusing the Prime Minister of showing weakness on the world stage. It was a devastating attack. For years, Canada's leaders have prided themselves on standing up to Washington. Now, Poilievre painted Carney as a leader who folded at the first sign of pressure. For Canadians already anxious about jobs and rising costs, that message hit hard. But Carney wasn't just playing defense. He unveiled something else, a promise of a new industrial strategy to be rolled out in September. The plan? Strengthen industries most exposed to tariffs, especially autos and agriculture. Build resilience at home. And most importantly, diversify Canada's trade relationships so the U.S. can't hold all the cards. Carney even announced an upcoming trip to Germany, flanked by key ministers, to deepen ties with Europe. It was a not-so-subtle message. If America won't treat Canada as a partner, others will. But while Carney looked abroad for solutions, problems at home were boiling over. As the trade headlines dominated news cycles, ordinary Canadians faced a crisis that had nothing to do with tariffs. Across the country, thousands of people relying on federal disability benefits found their bank accounts empty. Payments that were supposed to arrive in August never showed up. One woman summed up the desperation. "I don't got a paycheck and I got no food." The delay was blamed on a system issue. But critics pointed to Carney's earlier decision to eliminate the dedicated Ministry of Disabilities, folding it into a larger portfolio. To advocates, the payment disaster was proof that people with disabilities had been pushed to the bottom of the priority list. The optics were brutal. As Carney focused on global trade chess, some Canadians couldn't afford breakfast. And just as Carney was facing pressure at home, his counterpart in Washington was dealing with his own storm. Early one morning, FBI agents raided the home of John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor turned fierce critic. The official story? Bolton was under investigation for mishandling classified information. The unofficial narrative? A chilling message to anyone daring to cross Trump. Trump claimed ignorance, but wasted no time calling Bolton a real sort of lowlife. Analysts warned this wasn't just about Bolton. It was part of a broader pattern. Trump using every lever of power, from FBI raids to National Guard deployments, to intimidate enemies and project strength. For Carney, the lesson was clear. He wasn't just negotiating with a president. He was negotiating with a man determined to show the world he never backs down. And while North America played its high-stakes trade game, the rest of the world burned. The UN declared famine in Gaza, with over 500,000 people facing starvation. UN officials called it a failure of humanity. Israel dismissed the report as propaganda. Meanwhile, in Canada itself, tragedies unfolded. A deadly bus crash near Niagara Falls, families left homeless after fires, and even bizarre battles over ostrich farms facing mass culls due to avian flu. Each story was a reminder that while leaders wage wars of words over tariffs, ordinary lives hang in the balance. So where does that leave Canada? On one hand, Carney's decision to drop counter tariffs may have bought goodwill, with Trump softening his tone and hinting at progress. On the other, critics see a leader giving up leverage and exposing Canada to greater risk. What's undeniable is this: the trade war isn't over. Steel and aluminum remain a battlefield. Renegotiations could drag on for over a year. And while Carney looks to Europe for backup, he must also prove to Canadians at home that he hasn't forgotten them. Because in this high-stakes game, every move matters. And while Canada may have just made the first bold move, the question still hangs in the air: who will make the last?